Welcome to the groundbreaking news program that delves into the heart of Mormonism, your weekly window into the unique intersection of news, history, and culture that resonates with the tapestry of Mormonism. So whether you are tuning in from the heart of Utah or joining us from around the world, your favorite news program starts now, where news meets insight and the stories of our faith unfold.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Mormon Newscast. I'm Radio Free Mormon. Over there on the other side of the screen, that's Bill Reel. He's my man on the street today. We are not joined, unfortunately, by Rebecca Biblioteca, who is very, very under the weather and has been all weekend. I hope she's on the mend, but she's nowhere near good enough to be able to come on the show tonight by her own standards. So she's going to be watching this. She said she'll be in the live chat. She wanted me just to tell everybody that she has pneumonia or Ebola, or it was something like that.
Swine flu, I think.
It was something bad.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's why she's not here. Anyway, let's all give her the very best of wishes, hopefully in the live chat and in our hearts. Okay. Mr. Reel,
Yes, sir.
You got cooking?
Well, I don't have anything cooking. Life is good. I'm glad to be here for the Mormon Newscast. And I think the two big stories tonight are, in fact, really big stories. And we'll see how those play out. But I'll put up on the screen so that you can sort of go through those.
Yes, the changing again on black skin. So now there's a new story out from the LDS Church on their website. That will be my story, and we'll talk about that. There's an update on the judge and the fireman, and I'll bring that to you as well. Celestial recycling. Bill Reel is going to be talking to us about that, I think, as well as Gordon Smith, the church broke dignitary representative. That's a mouthful. And finally, LDS leaders to women of the church, we're going to do better. But don't hold your breath. All right. So now we're ready for the first story. LDS Church urges members to call out racism in their congregations. Okay, just not in their church headquarters and not in their church history, but in their congregations. So this is Dateline, March 22nd, 2025, the Salt Lake Tribune, an article by Tamara Kimsley, a religion reporter, up-and-comer. Here's how the story goes. Jesus was not a white European-looking man. God has no problem with interracial marriage. And Latter-day Saints should intervene when fellow congregants make racist comments. So says a new resource dedicated to the topic of race, released this week on the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints website and in its Gospel Library app. Tucked under the section titled Topics and Questions, the webpage comes more than a decade after the church's publication of the landmark Race and the Priesthood Gospel Topics essay addressing, among other points, the faith's former racist practices. So basically, they seem to have put up a new essay, right? They still have the one on there from, it was December of 2013, if memory serves, because it was a big deal when that came out on the church website. And now it's 2025, and apparently they are putting up a new essay, except this is a bit modified in that it is in question and answer form instead of essay form. Is that your understanding, Bill?
Okay, say that again. Instead of essay form, it's in what?
Question and answer form.
Yeah, it's more of, yes, it's more of like a FAQ, and it didn't replace the gospel topic essay on race and priesthood. It's sort of a addendum or a new sort of add-on.
Yeah, I see a lot of it is duplicative, which makes me wonder what is going on that this new resource is seen to be necessary. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm pretty sure the answer is not nothing. In many ways, the new offering titled Race and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints reflects the earlier piece, including withholding a definitive reason for the church's now discarded policy that banned Black Latter-day Saints for more than a century from receiving the priesthood or entering the faith's temple. So once again, they got no answer how this happened. It was a thief that snuck into the Salt Lake Temple in the middle of the night and just somehow inserted this racist doctrine into the LDS Church. They don't know how it got there. They know how it got removed because that was 1978, right? I don't know about you, Bill, but when I hear the one and only true church of God on the face of the earth with the living prophet at the head who speaks with God, right? And they don't know the answers to such basic and very important questions regarding their own church recent history, that causes me a little concern.
Yeah, and I don't know if now is a good time for it. You and I were just talking a little bit before the show, and I did want to at least show this. And if there's, if this isn't something you're wanting up there or whatnot, you're going to go into it later. That's fine too. But I just want to note that in 1852, where Brigham Young implements the racist priesthood and temple ban, this is about as close to a revelation as I think you can get. Now, they claim there's no revelation. But when he says, if there never was a prophet or apostle of Jesus Christ, spoke it before, I tell you, this people are commonly called Negroes. That's his language, not mine, are the children of old Cain. And I think it's really, I know what the church is doing, and I know what it wants to not have to do and what it is trying to do. But it seems like stepping away from the statement, it would not want to sort of answer the fact that Brigham Young is claiming that he is speaking in the office of a prophet, and he is laying out that they can't have the priesthood and why, with God being attributed as the cause.
Let me say that while I can see the tactics an apologist would take to try and dismantle that statement and make it something other than revelation, I agree with you that that is its straightforward meaning, that a prophet
Yes.
of God is speaking.
Yeah. If President Nelson said those words today, if there never was a prophet or apostle of Jesus Christ, spoke it before, I tell you that Heavenly Mother is this, or women have this new role in the church, everyone would be telling you that that's a revelation.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right.
Very good. There you go. Okay. So, second paragraph. Yeah. There is no documented revelation related to the origin of the priesthood and temple restriction. That's what you were just responding to, wasn't it, Bill? The new article states it was instituted under then church leader Brigham Young in 1852 and removed by a successor, Spencer W. Kimball, in 1978. Black Latter-day Saint Marquita Elliott of Lehigh lamented, it does not own the fact, in other words, this Q&A, this new church publication, it does not own the fact that blacks were denied entrance to the temple due to racism. And that is something that's very important to remember, right? Because for a very, very long time, it seems to me, it was always called the priesthood ban. But there was more to it than just the priesthood, and more people were affected than just men. And that neither males nor females could go to the temple, right? You can't go to the temple, which, as crazy as it seems, means that effectively there was a sign on the front of every LDS temple until 1978, effectively saying no blacks allowed. It's really remarkable when you think about it like that, but that's what it was. And thank goodness it's in the past. All right. So, but it does not own, according to Marquita Elliott, it does not own the fact that blacks were denied entrance to the temple due to racism. And now, what I wanted to do was I put a number of pictures, memes, in juxtaposition to paragraphs from the story, which reflect what's in this new Q&A. At the same time, both resources disavow a once common argument. That would be the old essay 2013 and this recent thing. Both resources disavow a once common argument that dark skin is an indication of God's judgment. Now, I'm not writing this. This is in the Tribune. I'm not setting up a straw man so I can knock it down by quoting from 2 Nephi chapter 5 in the right half of the slide, right? Which says, and he had caused the cursing to come upon them. This is the Lamanites when they get the dark skin, right? Yea, even a sore cursing because of their iniquity. That sounds like a judgment. If you're cursing somebody, I think there's going to be some judging going on in there somewhere. For behold, they had hardened their hearts against him, that they had become like unto a flint, Wherefore, as they were white and exceedingly fair and delightsome, that's the Lamanites' pre-judgmental curse, that they might not be enticing unto my people, the Lord God did cause a skin of blackness to come upon them. Now, I know the reporter's talking about what's in this new Q&A or FAQ, but this is still in the Book of Mormon. Back to the article. At the same time, both resources disavow a once common argument that dark skin is an indication of God's judgment. The problem is they're disavowing sub silentio, the Book of Mormon, in hope that no one notices. The latest piece does so in particularly swift fashion, answering the question, is dark skin a sign is dark skin a curse or sign of divine disfavor? With a simple no. Now, when I read that the first time, Bill, you know what I thought of. I'm going to give this to you a second time, right? This is what happens in the Q&A. Is dark skin a curse or sign of divine disfavor? ? And the answer is no. Does that remind you of anything?
No, I don't know where you're going. What is
planets? I'm so sorry.
Oh, no one.
It's the same thing, right? It's a lie. I'm so sorry. It is a statement that is like 90% not true, with no attempt to explain how it is that you are trying to mislead somebody, which is the whole point, right? No, remember, do Latter-day Saints believe that they will get their own planet? And the answer is no on the church website. This one is dark skin, a curse or sign of divine disfavor. By the way, in case anybody out there doesn't know, that's of course not true. Of course, we believe that we will get our own planet. We will build our own planet, and beyond that, solar systems and galaxies and even universes await. Okay, so that's the no. Said Black. Okay, so now they're quoting LaShawn Williams of Orem, who's a Black Latter-day Saint. That was the best full stop I've ever seen the church do, and I want more of it. See? And I can understand why she feels that way, right? The other thing is, I would feel that way too, and I do feel that way. The problem is I know the game the church is playing, okay? And what they're doing is they are couching the question in present tense. Is dark skin a curse or sign of divine disfavor? Is. And the answer is no. Well, not anymore, right? Not after God changed his mind in 1978. So let me go to the next slide.
Can I ask you just a quick question? Back on that one just before.
This one or the one before?
Right, no, right there. I know the apologist and the church now, to some degree in this article, but I know that the apologist and the church's stance is that this doesn't mean what we think it means. The surface level reading of what this means is not the actual interpretation of this, that skin of blackness just means unrighteousness or disfavor.
Of course it doesn't mean what it says.
But when you say like unto a flint, isn't the context is beyond just the skin of blackness and also Book of Mormon stories where people were worried that they would be discovered by the other folks. So the Lamanites and the Nephites, that one would be discovered by the other. They had to go in disguise and sneak in at night. But the context of this saying like unto a flint, doesn't that also suggest that we're talking about color of skin here? Because flint is a dark colored rock.
Yes. And also it says skin.
Yeah, well, of course.
I mean, I hate to point out the obvious, but yes, of course that's what it means. And that's what it's been ever since it was published. It's a skin of blackness. Now, there are certain times that we could do a show on this sometime. Not tonight, obviously. But we could go over the passages in the Book of Mormon at some point, and maybe I will. But I would say the majority of them, you could explain away with a metaphorical kind of blackness, okay? There's one where it talks about scales of blackness falling from our eyes, right? Okay, so that's something. But there's at least one, and this may be one of them. I can't remember. It's been many years since I did this. But the problem here is that the whole point of this was that you've got a white and a fair and delightsome people and another white and fair and delightsome people. And the problem that God has is that they're going to like each other too much, and they're going to start doing the interracial marriage thing. So then What God does is he puts a curse on the ones he doesn't like, the white and delightsome ones he doesn't like. Those are the Lamanites, so that they have a skin of blackness. Why? The verse tells us, so that the Nephites, the ones who remain white and delightsome, will not find them enticing or attractive.
And if it really means that they're unrighteous, it's not skin color, it's their demeanor.
Yeah.
Then that doesn't cut it for that explanation.
Not convincingly, I don't think.
No, not unconvincingly. I mean, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's the problem. So anyway, when they come to a full stop like that, no, when it is such a incomplete statement, how's that? Then I do think that they should go on and explain the truth about it. By the way, I want to say this now, and I want to say it later. I think that a religious organization has the right to interpret its own book or books of scripture. Okay. And this is what I see Mormonism doing, and Mormonism isn't the first ones to do it, right? Other biblical texts have been reinterpreted so as to keep up the time and not, be burning your next door neighbor who's into herbs or something, right? As a witch. So we have to reinterpret these things or give some reason to say that has no continued applicability in our world. This is a good thing, all right? And typically, people say it should be taken out of the Book of Mormon, the next edition. It should just be removed. I don't know that I disagree with that, but I do know the church is never going to do that. At least not if history tells us really what the church has done with the Bible, which is to keep it, not to get rid of stuff. And I'm talking after it was established as the books that we have today. So they reinterpret it, and they emphasize some things, and they don't emphasize other things, right? So this has happened before, and I think that it's happening now with the Book of Mormon. I'm sorry, I'm getting off on a rant. All I'm saying here is that I think a church has the right to interpret its own scriptures. And I think that this reinterpretation of the scriptures is a good thing. I think that it's good that the church is against racism. I think that all the statements against racism are appreciated and well-founded. And I'm glad for the relationships the church is making with other civil rights communities like the NAACP in the world. So I'm glad for all of that. The only problem I have is don't preach to me the glories of getting along, right, with people of different races as if you have absolutely nothing in your history of that sort. In other words, don't pretend you're a paragon of virtue, okay, President Nelson? Don't pretend that your church wasn't a horrible offender until more recently than a lot of other churches. That step has to be taken. That's why it is one of the steps of repentance, by the way. It has to be taken, not just in the Mormon church, but in other steps of repentance and growth. You have to repent. You have to say what it was that you did was wrong. You have to recognize it and let the community at large know that you recognize it. And only then can you start to heal and move on. What the church is doing and has done for how long has it been now? It's going to be 50 years in 2028, right? It'll be 50 years then. I'm sure we'll have a big celebration. What the church has done is they have never taken that step of repenting and apologizing and acknowledging that they recognize the wrongdoing that they were involved in and that they upheld and that they supported. Okay. So all I'm saying is that they seem to keep being confused as to why it is that the world doesn't let them just move on from this since they changed it back in 1978. The problem is, I don't think the healing can start for the community or for them individually until they apologize publicly with an act of contrition. It doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to have tears, President Eyring, okay? It just needs to be sincere and from the heart.
Especially if they're continuing to play word games by having Elder Oak stand up at the B1 conference and disavow the theories that used to be doctrine behind the restriction itself, but still use rhetoric that pushes the restriction itself as from God.
Mhm.
They're playing games with everyone.
Oh, they are. But I'll tell you, I'll get back to the story, okay? I apologize. This uncharacteristic directness, that's the no to the question that I was talking about half an hour ago, is found in pockets throughout the write-up, which stands apart from its predecessor by tackling head-on, Q&A style, issues tied to current debates and events, including diverse representation in art and recent efforts by the church to support Black communities. Meanwhile, at a time when American society has become embroiled over what exactly constitutes a Nazi salute, the web page resurfaces a previous statement. The web page resurfaces in other words, it copies and pastes it. Resurfaces. Issued in the wake of the 2017 Charlottesville, Virginia white nationalist rally denouncing white supremacy in all its forms. Here's what the new release says about, whether Latter-day Saints teach that Jesus was white, as is sometimes depicted in church art. Answer, no, Jesus Christ was born in Bethlehem to a Jewish woman and raised in Nazareth. Apparently, there's no follow-up question like, well, then why do you continue to produce pictures of him painted as a white man? I sense a little bit of wanting to have it both ways here. And blaming it on the artist again. You know, being an artist for the church is a thankless job. Next one, white supremacy. These are the bullet points in the story reflecting what is in the new Q&A. White supremacy. Quote, white supremacist attitudes are morally wrong and sinful, and we condemn them. Church members who promote or pursue a white culture or white supremacy agenda are not in harmony with the teachings of the church, period. End of quote. And of course, I had to juxtapose this from 1947. That was a letter from the first presidency to Dr. Lowry Nelson. From the days of the prophet Joseph, even until now, it has been the doctrine of the church, never questioned by any of the church leaders, that the Negroes are not entitled to the full blessings of the gospel. You see, this is the problem. This is the problem. By the way, in case anybody's listening, I was quoting the Negroes part. The problem is that when you do not make a public recognition and apology, the things that you say, though well-intentioned, end up throwing your earlier leaders under the bus. Because obviously, these three individuals in the first presidency, one of whom was David O. McKay, were not in harmony with the teachings of the church. So this is the problem, I think. And I think that's just a practical reason why it's also a good reason to repent fully, brethren. Next bullet point, Book of Mormon verses referring to God cursing the unrighteous with a skin of blackness. The nature and appearance of this mark are not fully understood. Isn't it amazing, really? It really is. Now they don't understand what the skin of darkness is. Okay, once again, Mormon prophets, revelation is subtraction at this point. More and more things Mormon prophets don't know that they used to know, but now we don't know. It's not fully understood. I don't get it. It says skin. I don't know. It says blackness. I don't know. Could be purple. Purple's a nice color. But anyway, they could be putting mud on themselves, on their skin. Well, why doesn't it say they put mud on their skin? Because it's... Anyway, the nature and appearance of this mark are not fully understood. Latter-day Saints are blessed as they heed the Book of Mormon's. Boy, that suddenly shifted, didn't it? Latter-day Saints are blessed as they heed the Book of Mormon's repeated warnings against pride and embrace its teachings that all are alike unto God. See? And they quote that from the Book of Mormon, and it is from the Book of Mormon, which was from 1829. Okay? So let's see here. And this is talking more about, well, anyway, we won't get into that. But there's multiple kinds of black skins, right? There's the American slaves, and then, of course, there's the fictional, I believe, fictional Lamanites in the Book of Mormon who got this black skin, which is specifically a curse that was put upon them. Is there something under... No, I see this. How should we understand? Thank you. How should we understand the scriptures? Well, there's another one, Alma 3, verse 6. And the skins of the Lamanites were dark, according to the mark which was set upon their fathers. Remember, we read about it in 2 Nephi 5, which was a curse upon them. It seems like it was pretty fully understood in the Book of Mormon. The nature and appearance of this mark, it's totally laid out in the Book of Mormon. Apologetics at this point is an exercise in trying to make the text say something other than what it obviously does. Next bullet point, whether today's church leaders and members are racist. And here's the answer. We all have to guard against racism. Sometimes we may sin and say unkind or hurtful things to another based on their race or nationality. When we do, we must repent and seek the divine assistance of Jesus Christ to be in good standing with the Lord. But if you deprive black men of the priesthood and black men and women of the highest ordinances of the temple, right, for 125 years, and apparently you don't have to repent at all. But if you say something that hurts somebody else's feelings, you know.
If what they're saying here is that anybody who held on to racist views, and I don't think going back in time makes something not racist. It might make the majority of people willing to allow it or looking past it or naive to their own bigotry, but it doesn't change the fact that they're racist. And they're implying that anyone who has those perspectives is not in good standing with the Lord. So how was this church led by prophets, seers, and revelators who were not in good standing with the Lord? And why, if there are prophets, seers, and revelators, why can God tell them coffee is bad, but he can't straighten out the race thing?
God, he's got strange priorities. His ways are our ways. His ways are higher than our ways. Actually, his ways are our ways.
He works a mysterious way. Yeah, I know. Man made God in his image. Yes.
But I juxtapose this thing from the new production, right? That last line, when we do, we must repent, seek the divine assistance of Jesus Christ to be in good standing with the Lord. So someone who is saying things, racist things, unkind, hurtful things based on a person's race or nationality is not right with the Lord. Okay, Brigham Young, bada bing, right? When all the other children of Adam have had the privilege of receiving the priesthood and of coming into the kingdom of God and of being redeemed from the four quarters of the earth and have received their resurrection from the dead, then it will be time enough to remove the curse from Cain and his posterity. You see, there's Brigham Young. His standing with the Lord. It's not right according to today's prophets. If they said that, that would be good. If they brought up this quote like I'm doing, I'm doing all the hard work for you. I'm doing the heavy lifting, guys. I know you're watching. Take this one down, send it up the chain, okay? They need to hear this. Bring up these quotes and say Brigham Young was wrong and this was racist, okay? And we have to do better. And we're committed to setting the example on this. And together we'll all move ahead. I think that would bring down the house. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, I think the church has had lots of opportunities to handle things the right way. And they'll never be able to put this behind them. We could be 500 years into the future. And until they own that past leaders made serious errors of conflating doctrine with racist false theories, and that the ban itself wasn't from God, then they're going to have to continually deal with this until they take care of it. And they keep, like you said earlier, they keep trying to sweep it under the rug and can't understand why it can't go away. Well, it can't, because they keep approaching it dishonestly. By the way, this fact page where they're answering questions, these are the questions they want to answer. And there are questions that aren't here because they're not questions they want to address.
Yes. And I'm not seeing a lot of follow-ups. Next bullet point, what to do when racism occurs at church. If racial prejudice arises in our congregations, we can look for ways to kindly and courageously speak up for the dignity and rights of those who are harmed or marginalized. It's important that we stand up for. The only reason I'm making these faces is because I don't know that there's really anything in here that has prepped anybody to say, okay, this is what racism is. You know what I mean? They can't really talk about what racism is. They can't define it because then they're exposing themselves, I think. All right. But if it happens, speak up for the dignity and rights of those who are harmed or marginalized. Good words. It's important that we stand up for each other and defend what is right. Okay. We can talk to local leaders. No. We can talk to local leaders for counsel on how to help stop racism within our congregations. That's a weird line because that makes it sound like it's endemic. We can talk to local leaders for counsel on how to help stop racism within our congregations. I don't know. I haven't been to church really in about 10 years, and certainly not in Texas, not in the South, but I hadn't encountered anything like that I was aware of in any ward. Yeah. Is that rampant out there, Bill? Do you know? You're down there in Utah in the belly of the beast. Is there a lot of racism in the different congregations?
No, I think the only racism existing in the Mormon church, for the most part, is the leader's inability to confront their past in a healthy, responsible way.
Well, there is this now, but still. Okay. Now, I paired this comment with this statement. This was from the 1969 First Presidency Statement. Joseph Smith and all succeeding presidents of the church have taught that Negroes, once again, quoting, while spirit children of a common father and the progeny of our earthly parents, Adam and Eve, were not yet to receive the priesthood for reasons which we believe are known to God, but which he has not made fully known to man. December 15th, 1969. Okay. And the reason why I bring that up is because where were the people in 1969 standing up for each other and defending what is right?
You can see, though, this 1969 is the second First Presidency letter on the topic.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see they're already starting to go, we might end up being shown to be wrong on this thing. Let's start to obfuscate or step away, distance, deflect away from these theories about why this came to be. Because it's 9 years later when the revelation comes. And it's sort of, this letter till then is sort of a relative moment of silence where they keep practicing the race ban, but there's not a lot of communication about it.
Yes. As I recall, there were some things going on in the background, especially with Hugh B. Brown and his attempts to make this happen quicker than it might have naturally or without his aid, and made a few announcements that were more hopeful than turned out, which ended up making the more conservative body of the Q12 say, we got to issue a united statement on this, or the First Presidency, excuse me. We got to issue a statement on this, and it's got to be united, man, and you got to sign it. So he ended up signing it. Hugh B. Brown did, along with the other members of the First Presidency. Okay. Interracial marriage, another bullet point. The church does not teach that mixed, this is quoting from the church. See if you can spot the trick. The church does not teach that mixed race marriages are wrong and does not discourage interracial marriage. Well, if you noticed, they're using present tense again. Because back when I was still a member, and I was a young man in my 20s, here's what we were told. When one considers marriage, it should be an unselfish thing, but there is not much selflessness when two people of different races plan marriage. They must be thinking selfishly of themselves. This is from President Kimball, by the way. They certainly are not considering the problems that will beset each other and that will beset their children. That was always the reason, it's for the kids. We are unanimous, Spencer Kimball says. All of the brethren in feeling and recommending that Indians marry Indians and Mexicans marry Mexicans, the Chinese marry Chinese, the Japanese marry Japanese, the Caucasians marry the Caucasians. I'm glad we made it in there somewhere. And the Arabs marry Arabs. President Spencer W. Kimball. See, I think he was worried that if he put Caucasians first, it might look like he was being a racist.
It was only 10 years ago or less where the Young Men's Manual that was still in print said,
I'm sorry. You just go on. I'll just amuse myself.
Okay. You laugh. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's only in the last decade that they finally got rid of the last manual that was still advising the young people of the church to not marry interracially.
Yes. And I wanted to say that again, okay? Because that's not a laughing matter. It was really only 10 years ago about that they finally got rid of the last young persons, youths, teenagers manual, official church manual that had in it the quotation from these prophets saying it's against interracial marriage, and of course, therefore, against interracial dating because we marry whom we date.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you brought that up too. I probably would have forgotten that. Oh. Now here's the thing. That's the trick. Say it in the present tense when actually it may technically apply in the present tense, but your past is shady as heck, right? So put it in the present tense, technically true, and hopefully nobody will call you on it, especially when you're in charge of the FAQs, right? You get to decide what questions are asked, and there's no follow-up on this one. But we should be attuned to this trick, if no other than this trick by now, courtesy of Jeffrey Holland, because he used it to famously disastrous results on that BBC interview. And this is how that trick immediately explodes upon one simple follow-up question. We're playing this off of YouTube right now, and that's because the place, I usually make slides out of it so that we can put it up there, and I put in the timestamps, and we just play it from beginning to end. But for whatever reason, it's making us go to YouTube in order to play it. Do you have the timestamps on that by any chance, Bill?
Okay. What are we wanting the timestamp to? I know we've got the 2 court things.
Oh, no, the next one was Jeffrey Holland.
Oh, let me
I thought you were working furiously behind the scenes and I'm covering for you and you're not doing anything.
No. I didn't know that that's the one. Give me 2 seconds. Let's see here. Elder Holland.
I'm glad I asked. I could have been covering for you all night.
So this one, actually, I think I can play without going to YouTube.
Okay, it just starts at 40 seconds.
Yep, 40 seconds. Here we go. You ready?
Beautiful. Here's that trick.
Romney. That raises questions if they've got a hold on the man who may end up in the White House. Let's talk about Mitt Romney.
Okay.
The man who may well become the most powerful man on earth.
Mm-hmm.
As a Mormon in the temple, I've been told, he would have sworn an oath to say that he would not pass on what happens in the temple, lest he slit his throat. Is that true?
That's not true. That's not true. We do not have penalties in the temple.
You used to.
We used to.
Therefore, he swore an oath saying, I will not tell anyone about the secrets here, lest I slit my throat.
Well, the vow that was made.
There you go. Perfect. Thank
Fire,
you, Bill.
fire, pants on fire.
Oh my gosh. You see, I mean, honestly, it's like Elder Holland thinks he's talking to a 7th grader. I'm going to slip one by the 7th grader and I'm going to use present tense and hope that he doesn't realize it, right? And then this 7th grader ends up being precocious, not only that, but having a British accent and saying, but there was, boom. So now not only does he have to tell the truth, he's shown himself to be a deceiver. He was attempting to deceive him with the oldest trick in the book of using present tense. This is the first trick that they started using after they came up with tenses, thousands of years ago. They started saying things in the present tense instead of the past tense. So I have no idea why he thinks he would be able to get away with this. I do. And actually, I think this is a reflection of the bubble in which Elder Holland lives, and then by extension, the other general authorities, especially of the apostolic variety. They are so surrounded by yes men and yes women that they think they can get away with this. And no one's going to even ask them a follow-up question to challenge them, even politely. And immediately he has to go, oh, I did not see that coming. Yeah, it's like he's saying, right, yeah, like it works. Are you ever not going to fall for that? This is his opinion about people. Are you ever not going to fall for that? Because obviously everybody falls for it. And here comes this BBC guy and he didn't fall for it. Yikes. That was the last major interview I think that a GA has done. Is that true?
Yeah, the church doesn't do the old Gordon B. Hinckley circuit tour anymore, do they?
No, they
Oh.
don't.
Oh.
They don't. Elder Holland, this was going to be his gig. He was going to be the guy to fill those shoes. And then it came to a quick end. Going on with the story. Overall, these and other answers have left some Black members feeling ambivalent. As a Black woman in the church raising a Black family, Cedar Hills resident Vanessa Bonner said, this article brings up many emotions, some validating, some frustrating, and some that leave me wanting more. On the one hand, Bonner said she appreciates the church's disavowal of past theories used to justify racial restrictions. Yes. She explained, for many Black members, especially converts like myself, it is necessary to hear that those explanations were not doctrinal and that the church is striving to align more fully with the gospel's teachings of love and unity. Period. End of quote. And I can understand why it would be necessary and desirous to hear that those teachings were not doctrinal. But they were. And that's the problem. This is another part of the problem the church gets itself into by not dealing with this, in a rational way, in a responsible way, in a Christian way. And so I have it juxtaposed with, of course, that First Presidency statement from 1949, not the 69 one, where it says, it is not a matter, I'll just start at the beginning. The attitude of the church with reference to the Negroes remains as it has always stood. It is not a matter of the declaration of a policy, but of direct commandment from the Lord, on which is founded the doctrine of the church from the days of its organization. That is the problem. It is hard to step over that, to get past it, to come to a point where you can make history reflect that this horrible teaching was never a doctrine in the church. All right, I'll go to the next one. Then again, Bonner said, the new essay missed a critical opportunity to center the lived experience of Black members. The webpage quotes from to center. I'm not sure. Maybe that means like to focus on it or to at least be centered on it to mention it, because the webpage quotes from 3 Black Latter-day Saint leaders, okay? Among them is former Area 70 Tony Parker on the need to address instances of racism directly with the individual at fault. Okay. If someone says something to hurt my feelings, he said, I need to find a way to help him understand why that hurt. Nonetheless, Bonner said the resource could have gone further to fully address the challenges Black families still face within the church. Okay. Like Black families, right? On the ground, the lived experience. And provide specifics about how members can support Black members in meaningful ways beyond simply stating we are all children of God. Okay. You're going to jump in anytime you want with any comments, right, Bill? I'm almost done here, but
Hey, you're good.
places where the church could begin include, she suggested, highlighting the importance of Black voices in leadership, culturally inclusive resources, or the unique spiritual and social experiences of Black Latter-day Saints. And then I just had a picture of Martin Luther King Jr. and Mark E. Peterson, because he was a leader. Yeah, famous leader. I think the Lord segregated the Negro. This is Apostle Mark E. Peterson. He was an apostle when I joined the church and for several years thereafter. And who is man to change that segregation, Mark says. It reminds me of the scripture on marriage, what God hath joined together, let not man put asunder. Only here we have the reverse of the thing. What God hath separated, let not man bring together again. So there's Mark E. Peterson from 1954 at Brigham Young University. And the reason I bring that up here is mainly because, Black voices in leadership. Our church could make some strides in that direction, I think. LaShawn Williams expressed a similar frustration. And LaShawn Williams down here in this picture is she's on the right. And it's right behind you, the comment from No Molly Sphere. You have that, Bill? If you can take down the comment just for a
Oh,
second.
sorry. Yeah, sorry
It's
about
okay.
that.
I just jumped out at the bottom saying, yeah, this Tamu Smith is on the left and LaShawn Williams is on the right. LaShawn Williams expressed a similar frustration. As a mental health clinician who has worked with many Black Latter-day Saints, she was particularly disappointed in the answer to the question, are church members and leaders racist? This should have been a hard yes, she said. And she's president of the Mormon Mental Health Association as well, citing the racist sludge her family and clients have faced through the years at the hands of fellow church members. Then she says, the sooner folks admit that they are or have benefited from anti-Black racism with a broken heart and a contrite spirit, she said, the sooner we can heal this part of the body of Christ. See? That's what we got to do. And once again, the leaders acting as if they are without blame, the public pronouncements that they have made on the subject tend to cast any blame at the feet of the members or at the feet of God, but never at their own feet.
If the effort is to position the restriction itself as still from God, if the effort is to deflect and not really lay out clearly what was taught in the past and admit that prophets, seers, and revelators taught official church doctrine since Brigham Young to Spencer W. Kimball and were wrong, doesn't that clearly indicate that the leaders of the church aren't really repentant over the issue? They're only going to say what they need to say to squirm out of the situation and are unwilling to address it in full, which is when someone's repentant, they're willing to be accountable, vulnerable, transparent about what it is that went wrong.
Yeah. You know, it makes me ask the question, if you're a person who believes in God, you're devout, you believe in God as a holy being who loves you and everything, what would it take for you to say something nasty about God? I mean, we know that you can't even blaspheme the Holy Ghost. That's horrible. What if you blasphemed God the Father, right? And how much more can you blaspheme God than calling him a racist? Okay. How much more can you blaspheme a holy God than by calling him racist? And then that takes me to the next question, which is, you would only do that for something that you cared about more than anything in the world. In other words, you have to care about this thing that you're protecting by calling God a racist more than calling God a racist. So it's got to be really high up there on the list of valuable items, even above blaspheming God. And of course, what they're protecting is their own authority. I think maybe we've got a little bit of a logical premise and conclusion. Maybe, I'm just spitballing here, Bill. You correct me, okay, if I'm wrong. That I think we have a proof, perhaps, that really the leaders of the church do care about their own authority more than they care about God Almighty.
Yeah. And if you position an argument where you're unwilling to actually meet the argument where it requires you to meet it, then you're already self-admitting that you have the weakest position in the argument anyway. In other words, by the church's refusal to address the situation head on, they're self-admitting that they don't have the answers because it doesn't add up. It's a contradiction they don't want to deal with.
Yeah. Wow. You know, if I were a leader in the LDS Church, I wouldn't be hoping that Jesus is coming back that soon.
No, because they're still not in good standing.
There's a lot to answer for.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. You're waiting for me. I think that's the last slide. I was going to do a bit of a follow-up here before we got to some stories from Bill. Follow up on the judge and the fire chief who were arrested on the child sex abuse and dealing in depictions, allegations. I covered this in some detail last week on the newscast. By the way, if I haven't mentioned it, and maybe I haven't, today's date is March 24th, 2025, Monday evening. Going back over this, these two individuals were brought in front of a judge this past Thursday, which I believe was March 20th. So this was since the last newscast, and there's some video. Okay. This is the ex-Box Elder County Judge, Kevin Robert Christensen, his first court hearing, which was, I believe it was on the morning of March 20th, 2025, last Thursday. We were just going to play about 30 seconds of this as he comes in. He is in custody. I think that what's going to happen, we're not going to play the whole thing. His is a brief hearing. They'll also have the police chief who's brought in the same calendar, and I believe in front of the same judge, I know. And his is longer, but let's just play like just 30 seconds of this. What the judge is going to do here, what his attorney is going to do. By the way, the guy in the foreground, that's the prosecutor. You don't know this yet until he starts talking and identifying himself to the judge. Obviously, the guy with the sheriff's vest on is a jailer. So he's going to come in through that door, which is going to lead into the jail. And then he'll come over to his attorney. It'll be a quick hearing because they're not going to address any request for bail or release. They're just scheduling a hearing out. But it is interesting when you think about this judge who is Bean, that's his last name, Bean, sitting there and not only knowing that you've got a judge standing in front of you who you know, at least by reputation, though probably not well, otherwise he would have recused himself, right? Standing there in front of you, accused of doing this stuff. And not only that, but you also know that this is going to be played to millions and millions of people. It is a strange situation. Oh, this is the fire chief. That's okay. We can just do the first part of the fire chief.
It's in the matter. Good afternoon, Mr. Bushell.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Ryan Bushell for Kevin Christensen.
Your Honor, Carl Holland, Assistant Attorney General on behalf of the State of Utah.
Here's the judge.
Mr. Christensen, this is a new case, so I'm going to go over the charges against you, and then I'll cover some other things. What you've just been handed is the information. That's the formal statement of the charges against you. You've been charged with 2 counts of enticing a minor, second-degree felony. I would mention that all of these are alleged to have occurred on or about November 2nd of 2024. That doesn't mean that's
We probably better cut it here, Bill, so we don't have playing the whole thing. We don't want to get in trouble with the people who filmed this originally, or at least more trouble than we might otherwise be. We're just going to play a slip of it and comment on it. And I put most of my commentary at the beginning in the introduction. But just watching that judge look right into the eyes of this other judge, call him Mr. under those circumstances. And I'm just thinking that judge, I think he had a lot of pressure on him. And I'm talking about the judge, the current judge, the one who was in the black robe. All right, Judge Bean. Yeah, I think he did just a really good job.
Are you ready for this?
And now we're going to go to the fire chief. Going to go to the fire chief. He's going to come in. He's got a different attorney, of course. I believe that's true. I guess we'll see. Unless it's so early in the process, they haven't hired their own attorney, but I think they have. So he's going to come in. First off, he's going to mistake the assistant attorney general, the AAG, for maybe his attorney. So maybe he hasn't met his attorney. Anyway, we'll just play the first 30 seconds of this. This is going to go longer, by the way. It'll go like 7 minutes. We're only going to play the first 30 seconds. And the reason it's much longer is because his attorney is going to request conditions of release and bail. By the way, from this video, I learned the answer to a question, which was not in any of the articles that I had accessed. And I had read a lot of them for last week's newscast. And that was the amount of bail that the judge, the first judge, the one who is in the jail now, right, had set on his fire chief co-conspirator in this whole CSA thing when the fire chief appeared in front of him to have bail set on him. Okay. It was $50,000. It's $50,000. That's the amount that the judge set on the fire chief a couple months ago. And then everything caught up. They went through the fire chief's computer, his phone. They found the connections to the judge who had given him $50,000 bail, on which the fire chief had bailed out. And everything has snowballed from there. Now the fire chief, who had been out on $50,000 bail because it was set by, the judge, who's since been arrested, is now been rearrested and is coming before the judge to ask, hey, can I get that $50,000 bail back? And Judge Bean goes, Nah, we're holding you without bail, pal. He said it nicer.
Good afternoon, Mr. Hanson. Mr. Denley.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Yes, Your Honor, this is a case that was set over before Your Honor so that we could begin the process. I believe this is set for a decision to prelim. We'd like to set this for a further decision to prelim in this matter so we can get the discovery.
Okay.
Have a chance.
I think that's plenty.
The attorney.
And if you want to watch it, you can go, on YouTube and check it out. I don't think anything else is gonna, remarkable happen. I do like that the hand to the back. Okay. The hand to the back on the part of the defense attorney. That's an important move. I perfected that move. I didn't just touch it. I kept it there. Okay. Important to humanize your client to the judge. All right. So the one thing I want you to know is that happened. And basically they're both being held right now without bail. The fire chief has been heard about bail denied. The judge has reserved the ability to talk to the judge about bail. So we don't know what's going to happen with that, though I expect, that'll be denied too. And right now they just set out dates. So it's early stages and we don't know much more than that. Your thoughts, Bill?
Obviously at this point it's allegations or allegedly, right?
Yes. Thank you for stressing that.
But if this turns out to be what it looks like it could be, then these guys are in a lot of trouble and should be. What they did was horrendous, and it's actually it's quite lucky it got caught when it did, because it looked like it. If it turns out to be true, it looks like it was heading down a path of really horrendous things happening.
Yes. So they're continuing to investigate, I'm sure, and finding all sorts of things, which they'll let us know when the time is right. Okay, so that's the update on those two things. Bill, what do you have for us tonight?
All right, couple of quick stories and then one with a little bit more detail. Just to note, Gordon Smith, we talked about him a few weeks ago. This is the church broke politician who said he would do things for the church and the church was more important. He said he told the group of LDS leaders about the inestimable power of having senators who respond to their calls for help, and said he regarded his temple recommend as more important than his election certificate. And you and I could have called this. We knew this guy would be taken care of for as long as he needed to be. He became, this was in the Salt Lake Tribune, former U.S. Senator Gordon Smith, Republican from Oregon, and his wife Susan have been named new directors of church hosting starting in July. I'm sure they're set apart and hands laid on the head for that. In this role, the Smiths will represent the global faith of 17.2 million members to dignitaries from around the world. So this is the same guy that Ryan McKnight and Mormon Leaks exposed in the behind the scenes secret meetings with the LDS apostles, where he proclaimed out loud that he favored the church more than he did his responsibility as a politician and his obligations to the U.S. government.
This is the one, and let it never be forgot. Let it never be forgot. This is a United States senator from Oregon in Washington, D.C. And he's talking to the apostles in their special room in the church office building or wherever the heck it is, where they have their little briefings. And he comes in and he's there. And also the guy who's the liaison between Salt Lake and Washington, D.C. and Senator Smith's office. And the liaison is up there and he's talking about how, they're so church broke over there. Everybody on his staff is church broke. And if 2 or 3 weeks goes by and he hasn't gotten directions from the church as to what he needs to do in his political office as a United States freaking senator, then Gordon Smith, God bless him, will call me up and say, hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. What does the church want me to do? I am not making this up.
And I just want everyone to note that he is now in the position of being the middleman. He's doing the exact same thing. He is in the position to be the middleman so that the church can now pass along messages to dignitaries, to political representatives of the United States and other governments across the world. And rather than the church leaders having to make their wishes known, he gets to be the one who talks to them And so he can buddy up still. He can still let other folks know what the church would like done. And the brethren wouldn't have to say those things directly if that's the case.
One gets the impression that host is the LDS word for lobbyist.
Yeah, it does seem like it has that. And this guy knows how to play the game, right? Good, clean cut, good hairdo, man. Good, clean cut Mormon. This is it. Mormonism is full of people who look the part, but when you scratch below the surface, there's something nefarious going on.
You scratch him and he bleeds Mormon. Well,
He
at
does.
least on the line above to the photo, that's appropriate. Ex-senator gets a new church gigolo.
Oh, yeah. Yes. But I'll just note, this is a guy who definitely wears his G's. And talking about G's, there is a company out now called Celestial Recycling. For $18 to $28, they'll take your old garments and they'll dispose of them. You package them up, you can drop them off at certain drop-off locations, or you can mail them to them, and then they will shred them and use them as fuel. And so they'll make good use of your old yellowed garments if you want to get rid of them. So Celestial Recycling out there, that's interesting.
They're going to make them into fuel?
Yeah, it says after being shredded, the contents travel about 25 feet along a conveyor belt before being loaded onto a truck and taken to a cement plant. There, they're incinerated at a blistering 2,500 degrees.
It sounds like a mob hit.
Instead of drilling for natural gas, we are now turning old clothes into fuel. So you can finally make your garments useful, and you can send them on their way and make them fuel. It's a great.
This can't even be true. I question this entire story.
It is. It's in the.
I wonder if you find some members' garments produce more fuel than others.
You might. It's. Yep.
I think mine would be especially bilious.
Yeah. Okay. The next segment. This will be our last, I think, main segment of the night. I think we have a couple little things about what's coming up during the week, but this segment of the Mormon Newscast is brought to you by Ozempic. You want to lose weight fast? Try Ozempic. And here we go. This is the latest from Mormon land. By the way, I said that because Elder Renlund lost like 100 pounds.
I thought he was ill.
No, he just lost a ton of weight, I think. I don't think so.
Okay, because I thought, he wasn't going to be with us much longer.
No, I don't think that's the case. I think he just lost a lot of weight. I could be
looking
wrong.
like
I'm deeply sorry, because then it would have been inappropriate for me to make a joke.
I know. He was looking like the Swedish crypt keeper. Imagine how bad I'll feel if it turns out he has a bad disease.
He reminds me of what was it? God is in his holy temple, part 2. Carol
you're trying to do the poltergeist thing. I hated part 2.
Poltergeist part 2. God is in his holy temple. Yeah,
that was scary.
Yeah, the worm in the tequila. The latest from Mormon land, we're going to do better for women, says Apostle. And then there's more stuff in there. Church buys more property. The Gordon Smith news was in this article as well. But I want to focus on the first part. We're going to do better for women, says Apostle. And in order to do that, I sort of need to set up some historical context. So I'll just really quickly run through. We have the moment where the brethren from the top down, in the top 15 leaders at Salt Lake, inform local 70s and area authorities.
I'm so sorry.
Please.
Elder Renlund, okay, the guy who may or may not be on Ozempic, because I got all caught up in the Ozempic stuff. His latest thing is that he has said we're going to do better for women. Is that it?
Yeah, and we'll get to the quotes.
Okay.
I want to set up the context before we get there, because once you see it in context, I think you understand what's going on.
Got it. Thank
you.
you.
If we go back in time to 2023, and it might be something earlier, but in 2023, there were some stakes and wards that were allowing female leaders to sit up on the stand. They were trying to be more fair and equal to the women and to represent them in leadership to the wards and state congregations at state conferences and various meetings. The top leadership of the church asked the local area 70s or full-time 70s to notify bishops and stake presidents that women are not to sit on the stands. And we all remember this moment. We went into it in great detail, I think, here on the Mormon Newscast. So there was the article from the Salt Lake Tribune, a slap in the face LDS Relief Society leaders ordered off the stand.
Yeah, and
Then
by
we
that was November. That was November of 2023.
Yes, and this is December of 2023. There was a lot of noise about that. Mormon Land booting women's leaders off the stand was hurtful and heartbreaking. Latest from Mormon Land: will LDS women boycott church on Sunday? Where might new temples go? So there's a couple different things in that
Oh,
article.
right. This is March of 2024, excuse me, a year ago. This is when there was all the talk of doing a boycott on the 17th, right? On the Relief Society
Yes, the
Formation
women-
Day, or whatever it's called, Relief Society Day.
Yeah, the women were tired of being disrespected, and there was some buzz behind the scenes that women were going to boycott the ward meetings that Sunday and were going to stay away. And some of the women who spoke in the articles noted that this church needs women to do a lot of the work, and if we don't show up, that would cause some turmoil for the male leaders to figure out how they make things work.
Mhm.
I just want to note on Exponent 2, there was women on the stand, an open letter. Even the New York Times, so national media even picked up on this. Does the Mormon Church empower women? A social media storm answers. So this happened. The Deseret News tried to deflect and sort of paint the picture as not that bad. This was in February of 23, so this was a little earlier, but there were other things going on. I'll share a couple of those stories. But
So the
opinion-
happiness of women is dependent upon men, and men have to be moral. And the more moral the men are, the happier the women are. Therefore, Mormonism.
Yeah. Remember Sister Camille Johnson? Read the speech by top LDS women's leader Camille Johnson about prioritizing motherhood. She was not an at-home mom. She worked professionally, and there was a lot of women who rose up after this talk and made mention that this is the first time where it seems like a woman in church leadership was encouraged or favored for working outside of the home. And women were in uproar, noting that so many of them had given up their life's dreams because the church told them that being an at-home mom was the most important thing.
Here's a connection, by the way. And I think that most women, I don't want to speak to most members of the church or for most women either, but I think that there's a certain number of people, okay, let's put it this way. And if you're a woman and you're in this church and you know what the score is, okay, and you've got, I'm so sorry, it was Camille Johnson up there. Now, you know, if you have any interest at all, that she is a career woman and that she got her position because of skills she developed in her career, which is her promotion within church leadership, such as it is for women. You know that. And I think that by and large, women have been able to stomach that and to sort of ignore it. I mean, you know, there's that cognitive dissonance thing that goes on, and sometimes there's not so much dissonance and you feel it. But it's one thing to tolerate that kind of hypocrisy. And it's another thing to have the woman herself stand up there and preach to you that you should stay home, while at the same time talking about how wonderful her life has been and how blessed it's been through not staying at home. That was a bridge too far. And then the connection that made to me was that insofar as that's correct, that also explains my feelings for why it is that I can tolerate the church's past position on racism and the priesthood and temple ban, right? And talking today about, oh, we need to, you know, fight racism in all its forms, right? I got to be in favor of that. I don't want, you know, my dislike for the past to taint what's good in the future. That wouldn't make sense. But the thing is that when the woman herself gets up there and starts preaching to me as if she is the moral paragon, and I'm the person who needs to be lifted up and talked down to by her, that's a bridge too far for me. And in my case, the woman was the male leaders of the church, acting like they're the paragons of virtue on the whole racism thing. And I'm the one who needs to get my ship in order.
Yeah. So there's that.
By the way, did you get in here? And I apologize for not looking at this. Did you get in here, Sister Annette Dennis and her comments?
Yeah, I think I've got that here somewhere too.
Okay. It was a crazy year last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, the end of 23 and then all of 24. And then I just want to note, this is a long time ago. This is 2011. Gender gap widening among Utah Mormons, but why? All right. So studies suggest there are more LDS women because men may be leaving the faith. And back in 2011, in this article, it was noted, they mentioned a data point from 2008, and they mentioned a data point from 1990. So they said in 1990, this surplus was more pronounced among Mormons outside of Utah, where 54.9% of Latter-day Saints were female, compared to 52.5% in Utah. By 2008, a dramatic shift had occurred. While the male to female ratio actually narrowed somewhat in most of the nation, it widened significantly in Utah. Females, this is in 2008. Females now outnumber males in Utah 3-2. 2008, 60% of Utah Mormons are women, up from 52.5% 2 decades ago. Okay, and then underneath that, it shows where that study came from. Then, demographic tidbits about the evolving U.S. membership. 52% of members are male, up from 44%, 47% female, down from 56%. This is today. This was the research that we went into not too long ago. Remember, 2008, 60% of Utah Mormons were women. Today, 47% of Utah Mormons are women. LDS church retention rates are down in the U.S. Male membership is up. Here's the graph that we showed. So this is in the United States total. Whereas in 2007, women outnumbered men. 2014, women still outnumbered men, but it had gotten closer. Today, in the church, in the United States, there are more men than women. Women are leaving. Whatever your explanation is.
So this is flipped, is what you're saying.
Yes. And since 2007 to today, women forever were much in much higher numbers than men.
They were always the spiritual ones. We all know that.
But they have been slowly in decline to the point where today there are less women in the church in the United States and specifically in Utah than men. Excuse me. I want to note too, this is a worldwide thing. This isn't just happening in Mormonism. This is a Christian online magazine, blog place. Why young women are leaving the church more than ever. Here's another one. This one's called Church Leaders, the Missing Generation, Why Gen Z Women Are Leaving the Church and How to Bring Them Back. And so now we fast forward to the modern moment, and now we can put Elder Renlund's comments in context. He and the rest of the church leaders just went through 2024 watching women for maybe the first time ever, if not the most significant, loudest time ever, really pushing back hard against what the church is doing and how it is positioning itself in terms of patriarchy. And so he says, the reason for the asymmetry between men and women regarding priesthood office ordination has not been revealed.
Isn't asymmetry such a much nicer word than sexism?
Yeah. What he's saying is that why women don't get the priesthood and why men do in terms of ordination. I know there's this nonsense about women have priesthood too, whatever. In terms of getting ordained to the priesthood, why women don't and why men do has not been revealed. He says, quote, any proposed reason for that asymmetry with regard to priesthood office ordination is speculative. By the way, same framing as you just gave for what the church does now with the race and priesthood issue.
It's yet another thing that the prophets used to know, but no longer know.
Yeah. So there's that. Now, I just want to note here's an article. I'm sort of tying in some of these in context of the things he's saying. This was from 2024 of March. LDS women can never be totally equal without ordination, but maybe more equal. This was Peggy Fletcher Stack interviewing lots of women in the church, and they were sharing how the church could do better. Even though the church says they can't have priesthood, it could give them some things that would allow for less of a gap between the way men are perceived having priesthood and the way women are perceived not having access to it. Again, I don't want to get into the whole apologetic stuff. They still have access and they still have it. He then says the absence of a reason, the former heart doctor cautioned, doesn't give us license to change the asymmetry just because we want to.
If we don't have a reason, how do we even know that it exists? That's not exactly well said. What I'm trying to say is from his point of view as an apostle in this church, abdicating his responsibility to know the reason, damn it, and to speak the reason, okay? But then to try and use his ignorance as a barrier to making the church better for women.
This, from the 1969 First Presidency Letter on Race and Priesthood, from 1969 to 1978, this is the exact same reasoning these guys gave for why they couldn't make the change on people of color. And if we remember what really prompted the church to change, because David O. McKay says he asked and he didn't get any answer to do it, Spencer W. Kimball gets handed an article by Lester Bush. And that article laid out the history on race and priesthood, the priesthood ban, the exclusion, the doctrines taught, what Brigham Young said, everything in context. And it seemed like it was taken by President Kimball to be the first time he sort of got permission to go, oh, we don't have to hold to that thing we've done forever. I just want to note sort of the connection to what Elder Renlund is saying here. Salt Lake Tribune article. Some of these use the same picture, but they're not the same article. December 2023. They want us for the work, but they don't want us to be visible. LDS women react to stand removal. This was when they were not allowed to be on the stand and they were told to sit down. Okay, Elder Renlund again. Any unfairness that's created by the asymmetry can and will be made right through the atonement of Jesus Christ. In other words, yes, it's not fair, not equal. We can't do anything about it, and God will take care of it on the other side.
It is such a strange thing to say, isn't it?
It is.
He's responsible. He's saying, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know why we're doing it, but this is the way it's always been, and this is the way it's going to continue to be. And even though I'm the one who is freaking you over, ladies, on this issue, Jesus will make it better in the next life, apparently. Just trust us.
These are the same guys who have no problem getting rid of the great apostasy. They've got no problem changing temple ordinances. They've got no problem making the garments no longer cover anything on your body. These are the guys who have no problem changing anything willy-nilly whenever they see fit. But in this instance, it can't be done. It'll be taken care of on the other side.
Jesus Christ hasn't come back in 2,000 years. He hasn't changed this problem either. Apparently, he causes the problem, but he's just too busy to take care of it here. He'll get around to it later. It's on his to-do list.
Yeah, and here's your sister, Dennis. LDS Church gives more power to women than any other religious organization, leader declares. Now, if that's true, then what Elder Renlund says next makes no sense.
By the way, can we just say what a dumb thing that is to say? LDS Church gives more power to women than any other religious organization, leader declares. Why are you? Oh, this is the Salt Lake Tribune. Okay, so they're doing it for impact, right? Because it is a crazy thing to say. The crazy thing is not only that she said it, but that basically all the Mormon women who heard her say that agreed with her that it must be true. The one half of the brain agrees with it while the other half is going, this doesn't make sense with my lived experience.
There are churches out there that are led by women who have priesthood authority in their church. You until you have that, you can't claim your women have more power than any other religious organization.
And we know what she's saying, don't we, Bill? Once again, this is the thing that you do when you're a Mormon, which makes liars of us all. What she's trying, what she means back behind all this is that all those other freaking Christian churches, they don't have any authority. Those are all daughters of the great whore of Babylon, okay? They have no authority because of the apostasy. We're the only church that has any legitimate authority. And so therefore, since the women are able to eat of the crumbs from the table where the men eat, their divine, true religious authority, even though they're only getting crumbs, that's more than any other woman in any other church has. That's what's behind the statement.
That's what it means. And by the way, I said this back when we covered this story. You can ask any Mormon, including a few that are in the chat tonight that think they can respond to things well. If I say, please describe to me what is the power that women in this organization have that women in any other religious organization don't. And I want you to describe that in tangible ways without describing invisible things that none of us can see, feel, touch, or experience. It's not physical. It's just a pretend thing in your head.
By the way, 2 reasons at least why she can't say it that way. Okay. 2 reasons she can't say it that way. Number 1, she offends every other Christian religion, right?
Mm.
By saying that. And number 2, she points out the stark contrast of the difference between the women and the men in the church. You guys get the crumbs, right? From the table. That's all you get as women in the Mormon church. So that's 2 reasons that she can't say what it is that she really means behind it. In other words, what she would have to admit is the meaning behind it if she were pushed to it and follow-up questions were asked. She can't admit that, right? But if she did, then she would have to show those 2 things that I mentioned before, I think.
Yeah. So then you get the climactic moment where Elder Renlund really goes the full distance. And I just want to know one more article before we get there. Mormon land, doubling down on garments and motherhood may not keep young women in the fold. This was, again, Camille Johnson and that whole escapade.
Yes.
Here it is. This is Elder Renlund.
She has been sticking her pumps in her mouth with alarming regularity.
Yeah. Here's what he says. He says church. So the article says church leaders, but I assume because it's not in quotations, he's saying we. But church leaders haven't done as good a job as I think we can to address existing imbalances within the bounds that God has set. So we're going to do better, Elder Renlund says. Now, he's not saying we should do better, we can do better. He's saying we're going to do better. And I will just note that General Conference is just a short distance away. And the impression I get is that behind the scenes, with all the things I led up to with the context, church realizes it is losing women quickly, and it needs to do something about that discrepancy. So it has to give women some larger sense of empowerment beyond what they currently have, because what they currently have is not working.
Passing out towels in the baptistry, not enough for the women folk, Bill?
Being witnesses at baptisms, not enough. Being snarky and condescending towards women, asking them to sit down, not talk too much, put a little lipstick on, not sufficient. And women have showed it by leaving the pews. They're not there. And so now in a church that's always had more women, now has less, the church is finally going, we have to do something about this. And so it looks like, whether it's this coming up conference or not, it looks like really soon they've already decided what it is they're going to do. We're going to do better. You don't say that unless you're already in talks about what those things are.
Well, you shouldn't unless you're high on Ozempic.
Yeah, well. So it will be interesting to watch over the next few weeks and maybe months, but it looks like something is coming that will empower women to a larger degree to start to bring them back into the seats. And then I'll just note little pieces of things that have happened over the last few years, creating a history about Relief Society, creating a history about young women's. I don't think there's a book about young men's. I think the church is making an effort to go, look, we got to talk about the women. We need to talk about the history and Relief Society. We need to make sure we start to make the women feel like what they're doing on their side of the aisle is important too, because it hasn't been important for as long as the church has existed. It's always been sort of a secondary thing to help them feel important, but they really had no authority in the church to do anything. Even the longest running women's organization in the United States, the Relief Society, has men always stood at its head other than for a very short time around the life of Joseph Smith and early into Brigham Young's tenure. So
Very
there's
good. So that's interesting. I mean, you're putting a lot of threads together. General Conference is on the horizon. I think Jesus is coming back.
Yeah. And then he says this. He says, I wish we knew more, and you may wish you knew more as well.
Well, you're the apostle. That's between the two of us. You're the one who talks to Jesus.
But reason cannot replace revelation. And by revelation, he means we get all 15 of us to finally frickin' agree on something. The apostolic charge, according to Hugh Nibley. No, sorry. The apostle.
Orson
No.
Pratt.
No.
Orson Pratt, I believe, argued that reason was a form of revelation. If not he, then his brother Parley.
Help me out, though. You mentioned the apostle earlier who was in trouble, tried to move things along, and had to end up signing the document.
Oh, Hugh B. Brown.
Hugh B. Brown, yes. So Hugh B. Brown notified us of the apostolic charge and
Mhm.
said, really, the way revelation works in the church is that all 15 have to have a majority of agreements. So 8. So 8 of the 15 need to agree on something, and then the other 7 need to get in line once that agreement is made by the majority.
Mhm.
And that's how it works. That's revelation.
By the way, this is also ridiculous. My apologies to Elder Renlund, but this is ridiculous. The prohibition on women having the priesthood has the same murky origins as the priesthood and temple ban on black people. There is no revelation that says that women cannot hold the priesthood. It is custom, it is tradition, it was imbibed from the surrounding culture, much like the racism toward black people. And look what he says. He says, but speculations can sometimes divert us from what has been revealed. Earlier he says, but reason cannot replace revelation. There is no revelation. You have no revelation on this. That's what offends me about it. He refers to a non-existing revelation twice in this paragraph as if there is a revelation, and there is none.
These guys are just playing word games, and they will. I mean, when it becomes necessary, and you can take any moment the church changes and you can see that they are reacting and responding to a changing world. And it doesn't matter if they put into stone previous pronouncements and statements as doctrine and revelation, they can easily change those the moment they need to. You can sense that over the last few years, women have begun to get fed up.
Mhm.
And the church now is in a need to agree on something changing, hence revelation will be forthcoming. So what does the future hold? Whatever steps are necessary to rein in the trajectory of decline of women in the church.
Can I modify that answer?
Please.
I say whatever the benighted brethren thinks are the steps that would be necessary to rein in the trajectory, but it will be woefully inadequate to accomplish its designed purpose. That's the way the church acts every time.
Yeah. And so that's the story also that showed up this week. And with that, I turn it back over to you.
Well, great. Thank you so much. Great story. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're going to give you a few announcements on what's happening this upcoming week. Now, tomorrow is Tuesday. Mormonish is going to be on the air. They're going to have a show. They're going to have a show provocatively titled Sex and Mormonism, The Great Contradiction with Ganesh Cherian. So that should be a lot of fun. It's at 6 o'clock p.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, March 25th, 6 o'clock p.m. Mountain Time. Okay, so that'll be great. And I think that this is already previously recorded, so we don't have to wonder if Rebecca will be recovered in time because it's not live. So this is definitely going on tomorrow at 6. Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat. This is Wednesday. You tell us about this.
Well, this isn't Wednesday, so this is tomorrow as well. And somebody made notes, so I apologize, Rebecca. This is only about 12 minutes long. This isn't long at all. I had originally scheduled this for 6 p.m., but with Rebecca doing Mormonish at 6 p.m., I didn't want to overlap her. So I changed this to 5:30 p.m. You will be out of this video by 5:45. This is a explanation because of what happened with the race and priesthood and us covering it tonight. I thought I would create a really quick video that runs through the entire gamut of how this whole issue came to be, the revelation in 78, what was said afterward, Elder Oaks at the B1 conference, gospel topic essay, and sort of frame everything with the full context of how it all came to be. It lasts, I think it's like 11 minutes and 30 seconds or so. So this will be tomorrow night at 5:30 p.m. I've changed the time on it. And so, folks, if you want to check that out. And then Wednesday, we don't have a thumbnail.
That's a quote from that the 1969 First Presidency statement, right?
This is, and this will have everything in it. This will go from 1852 up. The only thing it doesn't include is the recent article they put out, because I don't think the article actually adds anything of substance. It sort of just deflects away from what's already been said. But you'll get from 1852 all the way up to the B1 conference of 2018. And it's intended for sort of a general non-Mormon audience, a place for non-Mormons to go and figure out sort of what happened. But I think each of you will find this deeply informative, entertaining, and it will shine a light on the church's unhealthy ways of handling this issue, and to some extent mock the church for the way in which they do it. And I think folks will enjoy that. And then I don't have a thumbnail yet for Wednesday, but we are going to be sitting down with a gentleman named Sam. He is a gay man who was placed into or pursued due to a lot of pressure conversion therapy. And he'll be on Wednesday to share that experience. And then why don't you tell us about Friday, and I'll be done for the night, my friend.
Okay, Friday, Mormonism After Dark, 8:00 p.m. Mountain Time, where all the cool cats and kitties come to meet for an hour and a half. And I have some nice jazz music, relax, have a couple of drinks with friends, shoot the breeze.
There it is.
So, thank you so much for watching us tonight. Rebecca, please get better. You see how miserably we get along without you when you're not here. Get better fast, okay? Our best wishes go to you. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Bill, for being here, for your story, and for the technical support, as always. Please join us next week on Monday at 6:00 p.m. Mountain Time for the next episode of the Mormon Newscast. Good night, everybody.
That's a wrap for this week's edition of the Mormon Newscast. We appreciate you tuning in and sharing this time with us. Keep the conversation going and stay informed on all things Mormonism. Until next week, wishing you peace and joy. See you next Monday at 6 p.m. for next week's Mormon Newscast.